Okay, great.
Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or a little shorter title for you, IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. And as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, and we did this in 2020. And so we do them every Monday on a regular basis. You get a Porch Play Chat in your feed since 2020. So there's almost 300 of them that are available to you. And they're free on our website. So if you go to ipausa.org and you look in that top right hand corner, you'll see our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, our Instagram page. If you subscribe to YouTube or friend us on Facebook, every Monday morning, just like magic, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. You can find all of them that are free to you on the YouTube channel. So I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm co-president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is William Filler. How are you? Good morning. I love that picture in the background. Bill
Oh,
is a
okay.
retired special education teacher, has worked with at-risk children of all ages for over 30 years. He's been involved in the Empathy Circle since 2017, and he co-created the Empathy Circle Facilitator training with Lou Zweier. Is that
Zweier.
close?
Lose wire.
Zweier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. And Edwin Rutsch, right?
Rutsch. Yeah. Rutsch.
Uh-huh. And has been holding training since March of 2020. He is a member of the Empathy Center Board of Directors, and he's going to talk to us about a game that he has used, that he created and that he has used with, and he's going to tell us what age groups and everything. So we're really excited to hear about this, Bill.
Okay. And do you want me, would it be appropriate for me to share and get co-host, or
Oh,
would you?
yeah, let me do that for you. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, because some of the, uh,
We want to see
uh,
what they look like. That's a great idea.
okay.
All right, so I've made you a co-host. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay. So I'm pulling that up now. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. So I'll show. So my background is, Deb went over is in special education, and I guess the reason I'm doing this work, because my work was very difficult. I worked for several years as the director of education at a hospital for suicidal adolescents.
Mhm.
There were students and families in extreme circumstances. And what I learned is um, in that population, there was a lot of impulsive, violent action. A chair would get thrown across or a book across the room. And at the beginning, you just kind of look, oh, where did that come from? Usually in special ed, there's ABC,
Mhm.
antecedents, behavior, and consequences, or things like
Yeah.
that. And, where did it come from? I didn't know. And then one of my mentors would group us up and they said, what was the communicative intent of that act?
Mhm.
And I really hadn't thought that everything we do, no matter how wild,
Mhm.
is really an attempt to talk with our fellow human beings.
And that is so true. I always tell my students in my early education classes, every behavior is a form of communication. They're
Right.
trying to tell you something and you need to listen. Oh,
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree. And that was the epiphany in my career. And what we did is that we then group up afterwards. A lot of times in the moment you couldn't figure it out.
hmm.
But later after everybody was safe and went home and things like that, we would find that, oh, that child didn't get fed that night or they
Hmm.
saw a violent act.
Hmm.
And so then when we can address that, and not only address it, if they hadn't gotten fed, we made sure that they got fed. It's not enough to say, "Oh, I hear you're hungry," and then just leave it at that.
Right, and walk away.
That's right.
Yeah,
Finish the play, right? And sports analogy, I apologize.
that's all
Um,
right.
and so And then what happened was that once we could address that and the student felt heard, and then also felt that their communication was received and then effective,
Mm-hmm.
then you had a shift from violent behavior to more prosocial verbal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the key,
Mm-hmm.
really, to my career and my longevity in the career, because that's what my constantly was going, let's take this violence, let's talk about it, let's address these needs, and then
Mm-hmm.
build trust.
Yeah, they have to have trust.
Right.
And it's so easily broken based on maybe their life circumstances to that
Oh,
day that
absolutely. Yeah.
people have said they were going to help them and then they didn't, or people said they would listen and then they didn't. So, yeah, it's that trust that we have to make sure that that's a strength in the classroom. The children trust us. Yes.
Yeah, I said that my greatest skill as a teacher was my attendance record.
Mm-hmm. Because you were
You
there
know,
all the time.
I was
Yeah.
there and, I made mistakes or I wasn't perfect or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
then they don't. Bill,
Mm-hmm.
I was there and we worked through it. And
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
yeah. And so that tells me what the implicit message that gives is that you're still part of the tribe. You're still
Mm-hmm.
part of the group. We haven't abandoned you. Sorry. I have gnats in my house. So if you see me
Oh,
waving hands, it's not
understood.
alien.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I hate them.
I know I
Okay, you're
do.
going to share your screen, right?
Right, I will. I'll do that right now. So I will just a little bit of a okay, let's go to the screen and here and share. And can you see that now?
I can see your, yep, there it is, the empathy
Okay,
circle.
right. Okay. Um, so what I found and what I feel that is really not recognized by our institutions as a whole is how effective this work was, how
Mhm.
effective talking and having therapy and we over a 25-year period. I live in a county, Contra Costa County, with 700,000 people in it. And I had probably the seven most difficult students. It was a special class created by the California legislature um, to keep kids at risk of being removed from their homes into their homes. And so when I retired, I felt my work wasn't done, and so that's where I started with the my work with the Empathy Center and doing the Empathy Circle. You can check that out at bestempathytraining.com and also the Empathy Center. We can put them in the chat later or something.
We can absolutely, and I'll put them in the YouTube on the description
Sure.
of the YouTube video because this is a free game for you.
Yeah, it's free. Absolutely. Everything we do at the Empathy Center at this is free. The trainings are free. We have
Mhm.
cafes where people can come and check it out. That's free. Um, and so what I did is for 20 or 30 years, I was in an improv group that used Viola Spolin's theater games as a way of just playing with adults and but also creating set pieces, theater pieces. Um, and so one of the games is so Viola Spolin is great. She was the head of Second City in Chicago,
Oh,
and
I love Second City.
yeah, it was I I encourage everyone to check her out. Anyway, they're
Okay.
great. So what I did here is I made a series of theater games. And the object, as you can see in this circle, is everybody has tokens. You can see those on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you move inward to this black circle with the white starburst. And the difference here, and this can be adapted for any game, is the scoring system. Um, and the scoring system, I grew up with what? Monopoly,
Mm-hmm.
where the ultimate value is money,
Uh-huh.
and Risk, where the ultimate value is power and control of land, which
Mm.
usually ended in big fights between my friends and myself.
And
Um,
unfortunately, sort of is imitating what we experience today.
exactly,
Oh my
exactly.
goodness, money and power.
Yeah, and exactly. And that just doesn't tell the whole story. I don't want to demonize one thing or another, but it just doesn't tell the whole story. And
Mhm,
so when I thought about the problems of the world today, what we need to do is take care of ourselves. That's a very frequent, especially on the right, criticism of empathy, that you're just kind of
mhm,
giving yourself up. And in the empathy circle, we're not asking for that. You have to, you kind of check in with yourself. We call it self-empathy. And it's very important because then you say, well, here's my boundaries. What are my capacities?
mhm,
If you can't give this person what they want, doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just means that maybe, you're tired or you're sick or something else happened. You're stressed
mhm.
out. And so that's valid. The next one is in the game. So you give yourself points. You need five, you can get a total of 10 points to go to the inner circle, the next inner circle, but you only need five to cross over, to progress. And so you could have anywhere from an extra 5 to 1 points that you can then distribute. And then there are two other buckets besides your personal points that you can put them in. One is you can give them to someone who's lagging behind,
Mhm.
who needs some points, because the object of the game is that everybody wins or nobody wins. So everybody needs to get into the center circle in a certain amount of turns in order for everybody to win. If everybody can't do it, nobody wins.
I love it, Bill, because we play board games
Uh-huh.
in my home,
Hmm.
and and we don't play Monopoly. They're, Ticket to Ride and Catan and,
Right.
Clank and games that you get in board game stores. And there is a series of those games that are cooperative games.
Right.
You work together and you either win or lose. So I
Hmm.
love those cooperative games, and that's what this is too. So this is amazing.
Right. And then the third bucket is community points. So you donate to the community. So for everybody get in a certain amount of turns, and that varies. That's on the scoring sheet depending upon how many people are playing, et cetera, et cetera. So that can vary a bit. But by the end of a certain amount of terms, you have to have everybody, that's everybody, contributed to the community in order to get into that inner circle.
Mhm.
And when you get into that inner circle, you then play a theater game that Viola Spolin called Musical Jam, which is a spontaneous, yeah, music, just make using your mouth, whatever instruments, whatever's available, to make cooperative music.
Oh my goodness. And so the age group, I know you were the students that were in the back, it's playing in the ocean water. You said
Right.
were middle schoolers?
Yes, these are middle schoolers. This game can be played and adapted for any age, really.
Okay.
And the game and the other element that I left out is what people play to earn their points is something called prop round, which is a very simple game. And that's my redesign because I had different theater games, but you'd really have to be an expert in theater games in order to play
Mhm.
the game. And
Mhm.
it turns out very few people like that.
Yeah.
So prop round is a very simple game. And so you take an object, here's a pen, and you have to transform it into something else. So if I go like this, it's
Mhm.
transformed, and you can guess.
Toothbrush.
Right. And so that's 2 points. And
Uh-huh.
so you have a bunch of objects. Um, this is a camera battery, whatever, could be a cell phone, could be anything, whatever,
Mhm.
bar soap. And you have a bunch of objects, and you have a minute. And so you have a minute to basically uh, do this, and then people guess what it is. If they guess 5 times correctly, you get the full 10 points
Wow.
within the minute. Not. And then you can expand or change the time to accommodate different skill levels, differently abled kids.
Mhm.
So they might understand, but they may have problems in communicating,
Mhm.
um, and adapt it for your need.
That is
But
amazing. And
yeah,
what fun is that?
yeah,
Also
it's a
critical
lot of
thinking.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and also critical thinking and thinking, oh, that's not just, a pen. That could
right.
be. It's sort of like the paperclip game they give adults in some,
Uh,
group trainings. How many ways can you use this paperclip, and what are different ways to use it?
yeah. So that's what the game is totally downloadable. You can see that it's here.
Mm-hmm.
Here you can say it's empathyycirclegame.com. If you
Mm-hmm.
download it now, um, you can see it's all free. It's meant to be printed out. It's a bit small, for the printers that we have. It's actually uh, printed in two sections, so there's two 8.5 by 11s that you put together.
That you
It
put
makes it
together.
a little easier, but you could copy the design, you could draw it in dirt, and that was the idea that any person, especially a place where they don't have computers or they don't have the materials, could just print it out and play it for free.
Wow. And so the the results of have you heard results from teachers or people who have used this empathy game? What have they said about it?
Um, well, I have the theory. What's happened is that I made it too complex, and so therefore there are a bunch of in theater games. What it kind of builds. So you have like a prop round, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have like set a scene, and so a person will come up and let's just say that they're digging in their garden. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
digging in their garden, and then somebody else comes out, sees that they're digging in their garden, they can join that, and then they change the scene. So it's all about communication.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you can see that that's all of a sudden that's a high degree of skill. And so the theater games we did with special ed kids, a dear friend of mine is brilliant at this, and so she would do these theater games for all the kids, and they loved it. I would use it sparingly in my class because there were other things going on. I didn't have time to
Mm-hmm.
do a full theater games period, but I would use for instance, prop round when there was a time filler need. So I'd say prop
Mm-hmm.
round, we'd go right into that, and they would have some fun, and then we're waiting for the bus or something happened. You know,
And
um,
it also gets them to be creative, right? So if you do
yes,
you simplified it with the pen, and what else could this
right,
be, right? But
right.
but provocation is fabulous. It's so much fun. I had a storyteller that would come to my child development program and be in my before and after school room. So these were first through fifth grade students.
Hmm.
And she would come in and she would say, "Where are we?" And they would say, "You're at the ocean." And she would say, "What am I wearing?" And they would tell, so they would create her character, whatever it was. And
Right.
then whatever the setting was, then she would say, "Okay, you have to be the waves." And so, they would do the wave motions going in. And so the whole room is active, and it's based on what the children said that she was going to be doing in her improv. And then she would then guide them in doing the supports that she needed for her scene. And
Hmm.
she had the whole room cracking up and laughing and participating for she could hold school agers for 45 minutes. It was amazing. And they were moving and they were changing roles. And then she'd say, "Who's going to change the scene?" And someone would yell, "We're a forest." And then off we'd go
Hmm.
again. "We're on the mountain." And then off we'd go again. And she just kept it going over and over again. It was incredible. And it, it built relationships between every time they said, "When is she coming back?" Right? Every time. And as
Hmm.
soon as she walked in the room, everybody cheered because she was there, because she included them she used their ideas and she sort of led them through each of the scenes. She's truly amazing, truly amazing. Um,
That
but
sounds great. Yeah.
but yeah, provocation is really a great teaching tool um, with young children. Ooh, and middle schoolers and secondary and college. I use it in college classrooms. So um, and so you said you simplified it. So now when it has it is the new simplified version out yet?
You can kind of extrapolate. Basically, what I've done is we just play prop round all the way till we get to musical jam because
Mm-hmm,
that's easy. It can be played online or it can be played in person. It's
mm-hmm,
easy to pick up.
mm-hmm,
And so I still have the other games there, and
mm-hmm,
so it can be customized.
mm-hmm.
So I will still have that, but I have not been able to get to that yet. I've been working on handbooks and trainings and other things.
And that's fine. No, I so appreciate you providing this resource for us because I do think fostering empathy, it has sort of been lost. And, we're so judgmental instead of empathizing, right? It's very, very judgmental of many of everything, oh, well, they don't. For example,
Mm.
in early childhood, sometimes people go into early childhood education because they don't like working with adults. But,
Mhm.
children come with adults. And so
Right.
it, you
Yes.
know, kind of works that way, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes in because of their discomfort in working with adults based on their experiences, I'm sure, they become judgmental instead of empathetic. And so
Mhm.
it's changing the first response. I think that even this empathy circle game with adults would be helpful.
Oh, it is. See, yeah, I mean, there were adults who did the improv, and we do theater games I've done with adults that are very well received.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I couldn't, I agree completely with what you're talking about.
I think it's think about in the workplace.
Oh,
So if with your teachers, as a group doing the empathy game where they're figuring out a way to work together to achieve a goal and there's no winner or loser. It was really interesting when I was directing. I directed early care and education programs for 13 and a half years, which was way too long. But,
yeah.
um, but I remember sometimes directors would have competitions within the child development program. Like they would have a door, um, the classroom door decorating
Right,
contest, and there was only one winner, and that did not build a team. that was
right.
that was building someone who was people who were competitive with each other. And so, in the workplace, in your programs to our listeners, with students, if you're in a college classroom or a high school classroom or a middle or a primary grade classroom, whew, we can all use a little practice with empathy.
Yeah. When we first started, this is not the Empathy Circle game, but the Empathy Circle and the trainings that we talk, which is a structured kind of conversation, which emphasizes the lack of judgment. That's what I'm really going to focus on here. Um, we started with medical personnel in Brooklyn, New York in 2020, who were at, the center. You might have heard of the trucks, the refrigerator trucks full of bodies
Oh
and things like
God,
that.
yes, during
So you can
COVID, yes.
imagine the stressful condition that it was
Mm-hmm.
under. And what they said is that they didn't have, usually when we do sit down for an empathy circle, it's an hour and a half or 2 hours, but they didn't have the time for that, obviously. But they said that just 5 minutes of
Mm-hmm.
reflective listening for each other at a shift change could change their attitude for the rest of the day.
Mhm.
And that's what being heard and understood without being judged, I think, can give everyone. And I think, of course, it's sorely needed in our society today.
Yeah, because we're so and things are black and white instead of hmm. And I find that in my classroom. So
Hmm.
we do lots of this sort of I don't play the empathy game, but we do lots of things of
Hmm.
listening to
Right.
people's different experiences and that's different than their own, because we really all, I mean, humans are
Mhm.
looking through the lens of their experiences, right? But when someone has a drastically different experience than you were raised with, for example, in our children, families, and communities course, we talk about spanking.
Hmm.
And I have lots of research on why you don't do that. But
Hmm.
before we do that, I'll say, and these are students that I've had for 2 years. This is their last
Hmm.
semester of their AA program. And then they're
Hmm.
moving on to their 4 year to finish their last 2 years to get their teacher cert.
Hmm.
And so sometimes, they'll say, "Oh, spanking is horrible. Spanking is horrible. Spanking is horrible." And then someone who feels comfortable because they've been a group, almost like a cohort for 2 years, will say, "I was spanked."
Hmm.
You were spanked, and then they'll tell the story. And
Hmm.
then some of it was abuse, and they'll tell the story. And so students who were never spanked or who have never had an experience like that begin to share empathy with this. I can't believe that happened to you. That must have been so frightening. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And they're authentic in the way they do it. And so then sometimes because, this whole thing with, I don't want to work with adults, um,
Hmm.
we'll do that with family stories so that they begin to gain empathy with their family's experience, which might be instead of judgmental. So, any of those kinds of activities, and I didn't know about the empathy circle game, so I'm so
Hmm.
glad I know about it now.
Oh, thanks.
Any kinds of those, any of that kind of activity and experience that you can have, whatever age group you're teaching, so and so, you, oh, look at the tears coming down. Because we would always do this in conflict resolution and stuff. But,
Hmm.
you know, look, you bit your friend. Look at the tears coming down. We have to help them feel better. What could we do?
Hmm.
And the answer was not say, I'm sorry. That is not,
Hmm.
sorry is not the answer. The answer is, you know, getting them tissue and patting their back and holding the ice on the wound after the
Hmm.
teacher has um, cleaned it and sitting with the child, listening to their crying and screaming because it hurts. And that way children began to see the how their action impacted somebody else and build empathy. So all of those things that you know we know children need to learn, but sometimes we we don't just put them in timeout, right? We make them be responsible for their action and to develop that empathy. Nobody is born with empathy, so that's the other thing we have to think about. Um, William, any other things that you would like to say as we close out?
Sure. Well, I think when you brought up spanking, I think it's important to note the difference. Um, Kids need limits, but they don't need punishment. And that's a distinction that is sometimes lost.
Mm-hmm,
So we had in working with kids in extreme situations, there was a lot of violent uh, activity that we had to set limits on, but we
mm-hmm,
never labeled them. And we tried to point out, like you said, the consequences of what happened and the difference and the choices that they had. And so we tried to make them more conscious before they then exploded of the choices that they had, and then, give them a path to do that. And I think that that's really important.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think sometimes it's also asking them is, what do you think you should do? So and so, knock down my block tower. And they come, teacher, teacher.
Mm,
Well, what do you think you should do with young children? And they would say, I think I'm going to go hit them with a block. And I'd say, is that a good choice or is that a bad choice? Not that they were bad or good, but
hmm
that the choice they were making wasn't. And
Right.
what else could you do? I could go tell him he really made me mad and I'm sad now that my blocks are down. I think that's a great choice. Let me know how it works.
Yeah.
And then if the other child was not responsive, I would, the child would come back to me and say, they're not listening. And I would say, I'll go with you while you do it again. But I never said to the other child, I let the child who was the person that had been affected um, say it again. And of course, then the child would listen because I was right there. Oh, this
Yeah.
looks great. So look at it. So I'm going to
This
take
is
a picture of this, William, so I
okay.
can put it up
Okay.
on,
So
so that
this is our
they,
training. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And you can see we have trainings, online trainings. They're all free. We have a new one that's going in Phoenix, in person. And we also have empathy summits. And then also, if you go down here, we have weekly on Wednesdays and Thursdays. This is also free, where people can kind of, I'm sorry, check it out. And it's all free. It's a drop-in cafe. Um, and you can just see. All this is based on Carl Rogers' reflective listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the Empathy Center website. Um, okay, okay, which is always gives me this thing. All right. Center. Okay,
There
here we
you
go.
go.
All right, there we
Nice.
go. Yeah. And this is a vision we want to bring reflective listening to the world. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have all of these other, we have the empathy tent. We go to political demonstrations on the left and the right, to try to get each side to talk to each other.
Oh, wow.
That's our empathy tent. Um, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. This is when we had, we don't no longer have this venue, but this was in Santa Barbara, and we still have a Santa Barbara chapter that started from that.
Oh, and I love the science of empathy. That's wonderful too. That's a
Yeah.
great resource for them.
Yeah.
Bill, thank you so very much. Stay right there while I close this out.
Okay,
To
sure.
learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.